By the way, I know you don't buy the Warriors, but I do think it's interesting, not just because he's a member of the volume, but I watch the Warriors a lot, almost every game, at least half. He's a much bigger part of their offense as a catalyst than people will ever admit. The ball moves significantly better when he's on the floor. He
Of course.
remains maybe the best defensive player, certainly for his size in the league. He's a classic Rodman annoyance. And I think he plays with there's so much intellectual capital with all those playoff games, his spacing, his screening, that when he went after Jordan Poole, some have suggested it hurt the team on the road, that's where you hang out together. And it's a more clicky team. People took sides after that. Do you buy into that?
Oh, well, that's really interesting. I haven't heard that specific theory because the home road splits don't make sense.
Don't make
It
sense.
is
But the
it
road, if
oh,
a
oh
clicky teams aren't good
that
on the
would
road.
no, so maybe listen, only Houston and San Antonio have fewer road wins this year. Think about that. The Charlotte Hornets have been better on the road this year. The
Yeah.
Pistons have as many road wins. That seems impossible. It really seems impossible. So there's got to be something going on.
Right.
And the outlier event is exactly what you said. Is Draymond slugging Poole. And this is not that one guy's, a vet's going to punch a younger player is going to happen, but this is one of the risks when you try to bridge generations like the Warriors with the light years thing we're trying to do, is that you are going to have, and it's not like the NFL where there's so many guys, everybody can, have their own group. There's only 14 guys on a team. There's only 9 guys that matter at all. And would it be shocking for anyone? Because the only guy that kind of straddles the line is Wiggins as far as age. You have
That's right.
really young, and then you have the 4 guys who've been there for all of it.
Yeah.
Steph, Clay, Draymond, and Iguodala. That's it. And so it is a weird spot. I also think that winning that title that they won was so important and so gratifying and so much for all of those guys. Can't ever tell me nothing. Nothing. Title won. It's the first one. The Cavs were hurt. And then the very next year, LeBron killed them, which doesn't take that title away, but it feels a little, it makes you feel a little different about it. Then you're the best team in the world by far, but there's the weird thing with Kevin. You know what I mean? Steph's the guy, but Kevin's there. And then Kevin leaves, and you're in the damn wilderness. You miss the playoffs outright, and then you get knocked out in the play-in. That's the 2 years. And then you win the whole thing again.
Yeah.
I think, man, it is hard to amp yourself back up again.
I think, there's a lot of people that watch them even more closely than I do that felt like that was the last great moment for the franchise, those games in Boston.
I think, here's the thing, and that could also explain the home road, which is they're not that great of a team at this point. They are emotionally spent, but at home, they get that extra oomph, energy, plus it is still intimidating for opponents. So again, I don't think they're a 7-24 level team independent, but it might be that it's less about the road record being so awful and more about the home record slightly inflated for where it should be, because they get the boost from the crowd and all of that. I just think that strikes me as it's a lot of years, Colin. It's 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3. We're in the 9th year from when they won their first title to right now. And people can be like, LeBron went to 8 straight. 2 different teams. By the end of the run in Miami they were spent. And by
Yep.
the end of the run in Cleveland, they were spent. LeBron's ability to bridge that whole thing is mind-boggling. But we're now talking 9 years of title contention, essentially. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. And it's why I just have a hard time thinking they can gear up for one more hurrah. Maybe they can, but I think they might. If they find themselves in the play-in, which is on the board, unlikely, but on the board, having to immediately gear up for elimination level, then I just think they're in a rough spot, which is one of the reasons the West feels so open to me.
Nick Wright. We did.
Before we go, can I just ask you one question from the NBA Eastern Conference for a second? How much, because I'm not able to watch your show quite as, I watch pieces of it every day, but when I was in the mornings, I'd be at home and I'd have it on. So I'd kind of always hear you. Now you're on while I'm prepping. And I don't know about you. I try to consume almost nothing before I go on the air.
Same.
Because or else it'll get in my brain and I don't want to.
Same thing.
How much have you talked on your show about the New York Knicks?
Well, not a lot.
Okay, that's
I think
the right
the
answer.
Knicks. Yeah.
No, I'm not asking you to talk about them now. The reason I asked you was because the amount of attention that the moment they have a good 2 weeks, this team that's been out of round one once this millennia gets, because my theory on it is the following. I really asked you that just so I could go on this rant. My apologies.
Sure.
I think media that works in New York likes Knicks fans liking them. They like walking down the street and having, shout out to the Knicks. Thanks for giving the Knicks love. And I won't do it. And people on my show, they're like, ready to admit the Knicks are a threat. To who? To what? And I said today, over the last 50 years, the Cavs, who, by the way, are currently the 4 seed and the Knicks are the 5, have been a better franchise.
Yeah.
Like, it's flatly true. The last 50 years, the Cavs have the same. In the last 40 years, the Knicks have no titles. Last 50 years, the Knicks have won. The Cavs have won. The Cavs have one of the, I'll be generous here, 2 greatest players ever, really greatest players ever. The Knicks have the 34th greatest player ever. Like, give me a break. And even recently, and right now, who has the best player between them? The Cavs. Who has the best young player between them? The Cavs. But I don't usually believe in like coastal media bias, except for on 2 things: New York Knicks coverage and wildfire coverage in LA in the other direction. I believe this is a totally random take to end the show on. I believe if anywhere on the Eastern Corridor had fires the way Los Angeles does, it would be wall-to-wall news coverage every time it happens. If 20 miles north of Washington, D.C., you had 150 acres on fire, I have a feeling CNN would be all over it. But it happens in California, like, I don't even know. It's weird out there. There's oceans, mountains, who gives a shit? Like, nobody talks about it. It's crazy to me. But Knicks coverage, the over coverage of the Knicks and the under coverage of the California weather stuff, that's where I believe East Coast media bias happens. That's my ending take.
The Knicks, it's a Tibbs team. Play really hard every night. Effort wins a lot of regular season games. In the playoffs, everybody plays hard. It's talent, and they don't have enough offense. You don't have an extra
gear. You can't get to it. If your foot's always to the ground on the accelerator, then when someone else goes into 5th gear, you're like, I was already there, and now I can't win the race. I've read this book before.